The keyword save now. Save an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks VapoStick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks VapoStick. Soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapor Shower Max for steamy Vicks
As federal immigration agents carry out raids, they insist they're not going into schools and churches targeting migrants here, but a religious group is suing the Trump administration.
The Quaker federal lawsuit claims the crackdown on immigrants interferes with their ability to hear and receive messages from God. So, a coalition of Quaker groups is suing to block immigration raids on houses of worship. The suit argues the raids violate the Quakers' First Amendment rights and explains that for them, a diversity of worshipers is an essential component of the Quaker value of experiencing God in a broader, more encompassing way. This appears to be the first such lawsuit filed by a religious group. Harmon Roberts, Fox News.
Why is a big question. In Elkhart, Indiana, the morning after a gunman went inside a Martin's supermarket, then shot and killed two people, and injured two responding police officers who ended up killing that gunman outside the grocery store. It is back to school this week for kids traumatized last week by a deadly shooting in Nashville, Tennessee.
Students and staff at Antioch High School return with a priority this week: emotional well-being and mental health support and community-building activities amid heightened security after a student opened fire last week, killing a classmate and himself. That from just released 911 calls, investigators say the gunman was a known threat and suspended from school months before the shooting for threatening to harm another student for the box cutter. Jeff Manasseh, Fox News.
On Wall Street, stock futures are up with the NASDAQ today after that massive tech sell-off that led to a 3% NASDAQ plunge on AI concerns. The Dow was not dragged down by that. It actually surged up. But Dow futures are now down modestly. I'm Dave Anthony. This is
Lawrence County depends on WDXE News. On the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3. WDXE.
Well, we made it. It looks like we made it. It is Friends and Neighbors Hour today, brought to you by Keller Williams Hood Company, Real Estate Services, and Mr. Alan Salhini is my guest. Alan, so good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Glad it is.
Yeah, well, good to see you. You and I have known each other quite some time.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
All the way back into the 80s.
Yeah, all the way back to the 80s when you guys first came to the community, of course. And I was trying to think. Where were you originally from?
Original, now, where do you mean by originally, bro?
Well, where did you grow up? Where did Alan Salhini grow up?
Central Africa.
Really? Are you serious?
Yep.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I grew up, most of my formative years spent in Malawi.
Okay.
Some of it in Zimbabwe, some of it in Zimbabwe.
Well, tell me about that. How did that come about?
Well, my dad's a preacher. And so he wanted to get into mission work. And initially we were scheduled to go to Egypt, but the visas fell through. And so about 1961, we ended up in Central Africa.
Okay.
Malawi. My dad was in charge of disaster relief. He was in charge of youth ministries and publishing of his church.
Yeah.
In his church.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And so I was like 6 years old.
Yeah. So what was? So you spent quite a bit of your growing up years there.
Yeah, we moved back to the States in '70.
Well, what was life like?
Oh, it's interesting. Well, exciting.
Well, that's That's what I'd like to know about that.
The typical African image that you see. You know, we lived in a city called Blantyre, which is not the capital of Malawi, but it's a bigger city. And there we had electricity 24 hours a day, water. I'd say probably what the housing was kind of like in the 50s. Was the norm. And then you go 25 miles outside the city, and you're in the bush. I mean, you're mud huts, dirt roads. We cut our own roads sometimes. Always drove a four-wheeler. Always drove a four-wheel drive vehicle. It was just a totally different world.
Now, how did you educate?
Well, homeschooled the first few years. Started school when I was fifth grade, I think it was. Standard 3, they called it in there, the European system. And at that point, my brother, who was 2 years older than me, he was headed off to boarding school. And my mom said, well, we'll send younger brother with. So about the 5th grade, I went off to boarding school. Rhodesia, or downtown Malawi, Zimbabwe. And there was, I'm saying, probably in the neighborhood of 40 kids in school. And we lived there year-round. Came home for vacation.
Wow. It's a different life than what we're kind of used to around here.
Yeah, it's more patterned after the British way of doing things. Because all those countries were British colonies.
Right.
And we lived through the revolutions, where they got their independence back and so forth.
Interesting. So what caused the move to come back to the States?
My brother was entering college. And he finished high school, matriculated, as they call it. And so I was a junior. So I was going into my junior year in high school. And my mom and dad wanted him to do college here in the States. I think there was probably some background thinking there that he'd find an American bride instead of an African bride. But we were, everything was very segregated. There's history. There's history. There's separation. And so we weren't going to school with Africans. But we associated with them. We associated with them. Ate their food. Went trekking through the bush with them. I never worried about animals. I mean, growing up there, we didn't think about the fact there might be a lion or a cobra or a leopard or something. We just take off.
It was part of normal life.
Part of normal life.
That's what they're used to.
So we came back to the States about 1970.
Where did y'all first come back to the States?
When we first came back to the States, we came here to Lawrenceburg for a short while. And then we moved to Florida, in the Orlando area. I went to school in
Your father and mother, did they grow up here locally, or where were they from?
Oh, our family history in Lawrence County goes all back to 1911.
Okay, so they were somewhere local.
My great-grandfather, I think it was Indiana, 1911, and started a farm out in Flatwood. And then started a little clinic and a little school. And so my mom, my grandparents grew up here. And my dad was all over as a pastor.
Right.
And so Lawrenceburg's always been the anchor. Always been our anchor. Always come back to Lawrenceburg. So when I had opportunity, to move back to Lawrenceburg, my grandparents were here. So we moved back here to look after them. Ever since.
Very good. So you began to become a young man, an adult. So how did life take off for Allie? Well,
let's see. Graduated high school, and then I spent a year doing ministry work, kind of following my dad's footsteps. And then after a year doing mission work around Florida mainly, up North Florida, Tallahassee area. Moved to, went to start college, went to Southern Chattanooga, and Southern Adventist University. And at that particular point in time, I had a girlfriend who was from Michigan. Who was going to school in Washington, D.C. And so after my first year, my mom and dad at that point had moved from Florida to New York. And so I said, well, I'm going to go to school in Washington. My girlfriend, Washington, kind of halfway in between. And when I got there, she dumped me. That's a real story.
Kind of messed up the plan.
Yeah, well, it was all in God's plan because I was 2 weeks later, I started dating my wife.
Very good. I was going to ask you, how did you guys meet? Well, and your wife's name, my first girlfriend dumped me. Your wife's name is Suzanne.
Yeah, we call her Suzanne. And so anyway, she dumped me. So I'm like, no, this is no fun. Here I move all the way to city from Central Florida, and I gotta find somebody. Rub shoulders with, you know. And so I met these two girls. In the lobby of the boys' dormitory. We had a recreational area. It was in the basement of the men's.
Now, what school was this?
This is Washington Adventist University.
Still an Adventist University.
And so the recreation room was in the basement, and we had big tables and TV, all the good stuff. And I'd been passing through the lobby, and these couple girls to get your ping pong paddles, get your whatever you wanted to use, you had to turn your student ID,
right,
to get the equipment. And of course, you got your ID back when you brought your equipment back. Right. And so anyway, I was passing through the lobby, and these two girls were standing there, and they were trying to negotiate getting ping pong paddles, but they didn't have their student ID. So I said, well, here, use mine. And so that's where I initially met Suzanne and Jeanette. And so later on, at that time, I was still my first girlfriend. So I wasn't thinking anything of it. Kind student, I guess. Yeah. And so anyway, after I broke up, I was thinking about those two girls. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna ask whichever one I meet first. And turned out that Susan was the one that I met first.
God's providence.
Yeah, cafeteria line.
There you go.
Cafeteria be in front of me.
Very good. Now she was studying. Now
what did you study nursing?
Yeah, so you were studying what?
Theology.
Theology. Interesting. I'm vaguely familiar with some of the Seventh-day Adventists. We'll have to get into that a lot. But you guys have had a presence here. Some time and been a part of the community here for many years.
I think my great grandfather was the first grandfather who was there.
Yeah. Good deal. And you guys your facility is on Buffalo Road.
Right. Yeah. Initially, my great grandfather started a clinic out in Flatwoods, and then we moved to the property there across from the health department where Scott Healthcare is now. Built a wooden clinic, and that burned down. They built the one where the health department is, and then eventually had to expand into what is now Scott Healthcare on Buffalo Road. That was a sanitarium for me.
When I was growing up, doctor and mother used, and I was taken to Dr. Henderson. Now, he was a Seventh doctor. He was not. I thought he was.
Yeah, Henderson and Sutherland. Henderson and Sutherland both. Yeah, first doctors, main doctors.
Yeah, I remember those guys. Good guys, good people. You guys, I was going to just mention, I know that not only do you guys worship there, but there's another church, I guess, group that's meeting there on Sundays.
Yeah, Freedom Bible. Yeah, Freedom Bible Church.
You guys opened the doors to those guys to get.
They needed a place to worship. It's God's house. It's God's house.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, I wanted to kind of get to. You're quite knowledgeable in the arena of healthy living. Healthy living.
Well, that's a story all in itself.
How did all this develop?
Well, all my years in Africa, one of the things that really hits you is lack of good healthcare. So we were associated, like I said, my father was a youth worker, and in community services or disaster relief for refugee help. And so we were closely connected with the medical work in Central Africa. In Malawi, we have a hospital. My mother was working at a dental clinic, and we had a clinic in Blantyre. We also had a clinic in Malamula, which is a pretty famous mission station, about 40 miles south of Blantyre. And a lot of my friends, parents were doctors and nurses and stuff at Malamula. Used to ride out there on my bicycle. Ride back home again. Or catch a ride with my other guys going into town. But I got the interest, you might say, in working to try to improve health in Malawi. And the biggest problem was getting help to the people. My dad was a pilot. My dad was a pilot. Fly the mission plane. They fly patients in and out of the hospital, but there was no real clinic involved. So my natural skills. After 13 years of Steve Williams, I guess he kind of shows up. First thing that I like to do is take things apart, put it back together, fix it back together. So I'm brainstorming and I'm drawing pictures and making the plans for a mobile medical clinic based on a semi-truck.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Figuring out where to put the equipment and all that, how to power it, and keep the solar panels, all that kind of stuff. And along with that desire to develop a mobile clinic, I figured, well, I'm going to be a doctor. I planned on being a doctor for day one, I guess, for as long as I can remember. So blending medical and mechanical aptitude, if you please, was just kind of a natural way to go. Well, I started college in a pre-med program. A friend of mine from high school started college. Planned on going to be a doctor. And first year of college, I had to take composition. I had tested out of a lot of subjects because the British system and the American system was quite different. In the high school, you did a lot of pre-college type material. And so I tested out of a lot of subjects, but I had to take some of these compositions. First thing they give you a assignment, you got to write a term. That's always, the way to do it. So pick a subject. Well, I'm going to write a term paper on what it's like to be a doctor. It wasn't where I was headed. And so I started researching for this, and I decided real quick, doctoring was not for me.
So your research to be a doctor turned you against it.
Mainly because of the hours and the lifestyle that they have to put up with. That just wasn't going to be me. The idea of 24 on, 7 off, or 24, 36 on, 24 off, the schedules the doctors have to keep. and the work the way they do with drugs and all. I just said, I'm going to do something different. Well, growing up, you have three choices.
Okay.
Doctor, teacher, preacher. Okay. That's kind of the way it worked. I didn't want to go into the military. We were a military family too. My grandfather, my father, and so I said, well, I don't want to be a preacher because that was my dad was doing. And I don't want to be a doctor. So the only thing I've got left, excuse me, I don't want to be a teacher. The only thing I had left was a preacher. I didn't want to be a teacher. And so I started taking religion and following that course. But that was interesting, engaging. I learned a lot, and that's my spiritual focus is really good.
Sure.
On that.
Sure.
I'm still involved in that. But there was always something that just didn't quite fit. Just wasn't my niche. Somewhere, finished college and graduated with a degree and all. I just laid it out for the Lord. You want me to be a pastor. Take a church, build a church, and be a pastor. Then you're going to have to get somebody to invite me to the church. To invite me to be their pastor. And I said, I'm like Gideon. I put out a fleece. It's got to be by a certain time. I don't want to be in limbo. All this time. So I said, by the end of the day, commencement exercise, if I haven't had an invitation to at least come and check something out. Sue and I were married by that time. And I said, I'm going to do what my natural talent is. Jeff, I think God gives us the ability to do what He wants us to do in life. Naturally. Okay, now we can enhance those talents, we can grow them, we can expand our field. But what we like to do, what we naturally do, that's got to be the linchpin. That's got to be the anchor point for what God wants you to do, how He wants you to minister, how He wants you to minister. And like I say, mechanics was always my thing. So I said, well, Lord, if I don't get a church, I'm going to go to mechanics. I'm going to enhance that area, maybe move to an area to support myself with my hands, working on hard stuff. And maybe start a church and see what happens. But that's going to be my. I didn't get a call. So I went into mechanics. I was working as an industrial mechanic, and then I started doing classwork and stuff to get my certification as a master mechanic. Well, about 2.5 years into that, somebody approached me and said, you're down in Mississippi to be the industrial arts teacher and maintenance director for our school. Well, that's cool. So I went down to Mississippi. We were there for 3.5 years. Went down there as maintenance director and industrial arts teacher. Ended up being associate or interim school principal.
Wow.
Teaching industrial arts, Bible, and history.
Okay.
Then when the school ran into some issues, and so we ended up having to move because the school was closing down. And I thought, well, now what do I do? Go to Lawrenceburg. Go back home. And so I came up here, and Steve Williams was just opening up. They hadn't even opened the doors yet. Talked to Joe Cobbett, and he hired me.
I kind of
the shop.
It had kind of passed my mind. That you were there in a part of Steve. You were there from the beginning.
Yeah, 13 years.
Yeah, you were there. Of course, I spent some time there too. Different things, but would see you there, and I think that's probably when we first got acquainted. Was your time there at Steve Times Ford. So from there, though, you ended up.
How did I get the health business?
How did you get the health business?
Well, while we were at the school in Mississippi, my wife is a nurse. And she was the school nurse. But she was also in charge of the commissary little store that we had there for the staff and students.
Right.
And so she had made some contacts in buying materials for the store. And the school was very interested keeping the students healthy. So the cafeteria and everything was focused on good food. It wasn't just good food. It wasn't junk food breakfast or whatever. We were trying to feed them good. And so she had gotten some contacts. Products, flowers, fruit, mainly natural foods or organic type foods.
Sure.
For the school. So anyway, when we moved here, she had all those contacts, and we looked around Lawrence County. The only place you could buy some of the stuff that we were really at that time using.
Someone's looking for you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Was at the sanitarium. Was a little gift shop there. And you could buy what we call meat analogs or soy-based foods that mimic meat. We were vegetarians. But there wasn't much else. And so my wife's looking around. We need fruit, and stuff. And we moved out into Etheridge, right in the middle of the Etheridge. And so one of her Amish, she was asking around, said that actually the guy that owns the farm, where the Amish farm, where the tourist place is right now. He said, well, we order peaches. And we could get some for you. Great. So she called a few friends, and they ended up with a peach order. We didn't charge anything. We just kind of facilitated the exchange there, connection. And then the next fruit thing came along, and she called her friends again. And next thing you know, we're keeping some of the stuff for people later on. And it just evolved into a store that we had on the back side of the house. And then she started getting other things that she started getting from her previous contacts. And then we started carrying vitamins. Ended up building a little. We had a back porch was our store. And we outgrew that and built an addition to the house for the store. And then the insurance company along and said, "Well, your whole place is commercial. You got to pay commercial insurance on it." And I said, "No, that ain't happening." So we built a little building outside. A separate building for the store. And about that time, the Westside Plaza came available, and so we bought that and expanded again. So it's just been a growth process over the years.
Interesting. How long has that store been open?
Westside's been open since '93.
It's grown to quite a store, to quite a clientele. Developing that.
The county's been real good to us. We're very grateful. And we have a steady stream of folks that are interested in just being more healthy. My background in studying, thinking about medicine, my wife's RN, training. Well, let me see. My dad got cancer. And working through the allopathic system of cancer treatment, cancer therapy, and radiation, kind of made us think, is there a better way? And so that started opening the doors more to our personal life, thinking about alternative or complementary ways of dealing with real ways. And with her training and with her interest in anatomy and interest in how do things work and how do you fix them. I mean, that applies not only to fixing cars and fixing machinery, it also applies to your body. So I see the body more as not exactly as a machine, not exactly in that sphere. In school, I took biology, I took physics, I took chemistry, and so all these science courses, anatomy, physiology, you take these courses and so you start to learn how the body functions and how it works. And that was always intriguing. And so that just kind of was a natural fit with the health food side of it was to get your vitamins and minerals. How the body works.
So you had a natural acumen, right? Just had an interest of it.
It just kind of slipped in there naturally.
Of course, I've listened to you over the years. On radio talking about different particular health issues, body functions, all those kind of things. And I get overwhelmed with it. There's just too much to know. There's just too much to know. And so I give up on it. And so that, and I think maybe a lot of people fall in that category. I'm overwhelmed with all this information.
That's a problem I've got. So I like to explain things. But it all started. Came about or continued. I mean, that's just the way I am. I guess. How do things work? How to fix things work? And it was that way with Steve Wade with cars too. To bring the car in and what's going on with it. Well, do they really want to know what's going on with it, or do they just want it fixed?
Most times we just want it fixed.
And so I'd have to bridle my tongue most of the time. But there were times when the customer would why? What's really going on? And I always felt like it would be. They would be more comfortable. With understanding the repair that we were doing. If they understood why we were doing it. And I just say, well, you need to start. Why do I need to start? Why do I need to start? Or how do I know that you're telling me the truth about the fact that I need my starter replaced? And so explain a little bit of why and how things work. Just was just a natural for me.
Sure.
And it just comes the same with the body. So if you want an earful, but if you don't, just tell me. I'll just tell you what works.
I can take it in doses, but there's times when I'm like, okay, here I've got this problem. Just tell me what I need to fix it. Don't tell me why to fix it. Don't tell me what. Just tell me what I need.
Just tell me what you want to know.
But for some, it's interesting to find out why this works and why it doesn't work.
If you know why, you can prevent a lot. I can see that. And so prevention is a big part. Education, prevention. You want folks to be healthy. And so if they can stay healthy, they don't need us. They don't need the doctor. They don't need the doctor. I've never been interested in just the money side. You just have to make a living.
Sure.
But it's always been for us more trying to help people be healthy.
Well, I think that's
just trying to make a buck.
Absolutely. I think if you have a business where you do that, the money will take care of itself. If you really just take care of people. That's one of the things I learned from Steve. He told me when I started real estate, you'll take care of the customer. You have to worry about the money. And of course, starting out young when I didn't have any money, I worried about it a lot.
We tend to do that. My wife more so than I did.
But anyway, that turns out to be true. And he wasn't the originator of that. I think trying to see after others' interests is always in your best interest. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is. I wanted to I'll come back to the health thing. Just the health thing. And we may get some callers. And you may know this, ladies and calls. You may have to have your headphones to hear. Sometimes we get calls in. Sometimes we get calls in. Have a caller this morning. How are you?
Fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
I am in here. I had someone 6 months to live with nothing we could do 30 years ago, and the wife took charge, got him on a diet. They lived 6 months to live, nothing we can do. And the wife told them, this is what we're doing, you do what you need to do. I think it gave them the motivation to do those things. This person lived almost 3 years and never had to go on disability. But my question, I've got a request now. I know him because I shop there. But anyway, does he believe that the Jewish diet is similar to what they call the DASH diet for heart health and the Mediterranean diet today? And was it sort of based on the belief of the church or him in that the Jewish diet, even though we're not bound by it, has a lot of truth because God created us out of the dust of the earth, and if we haven't polluted it and followed His laws, we're probably going to be healthier. And I'll hang up.
All right. She has a lot of information. To simplify that. Well, you go ahead and answer this.
What she's referring to the Jewish diet is really the Old Testament. In the beginning, God created a garden for man to live in, according to the Bible.
Right.
And if you read the Bible, what He gave man to eat was basically fruit. And so they didn't grow stuff. They didn't plant stuff.
Right.
They just harvested. Like the animals did. They just grazed what was there.
Right.
And so you had fruits and nuts, but you didn't have a lot of agriculture.
No.
They weren't eating a lot of leaves, grass, and leaves like cows. They mainly were fruits and nuts. They were stuff that you could just pick and eat. Well, after sin came in, and they got removed from the garden, according to the Bible story. They were given the herbs of the field, or the green stuff of the field. And Adam started tilling the ground. Started growing things. So you have your grains, which you can just pick and eat. You got your nuts and you got your fruit. And now you had your vegetables and your root crops that were more cultivated. You had to work for it. You couldn't just go out and pick them up. Go out and dig them up, or you had to do something to get to them. And that diet, or that way of life, persisted up until the time of the flood. Now, not to say that there was not meat consumed prior to that, but man was not given permission by God to consume flesh food. After the flood, because there was a lack of vegetation, time to restore the earth and to grow. It took a while. The Bible says that Noah planted a vineyard. But vineyards don't produce first year.
Right. That's right.
I'm sure they had some plants on the ark with them. It's interesting if you go to the Ark Encounter in Kentucky to see how they envisioned the ark and the way Noah growed things while he was in the ark. But after the flood, then there was the permission was given. If your permission was to consume flesh foods, and if you notice in the genealogies, the lifespan of humans decreased rapidly after the flood. So modern science has vindicated the concept that the closer we eat to the ground, the closer we get our food on a first come on a first-use basis rather than second-hand.
Right.
The healthier we're going to be. So when we eat fruit and vegetables and nuts and stuff that grows out of the ground, we're getting it first-hand. When we consume an animal,
What we call unprocessed.
when we get an animal process of food, we're getting a processed food. We're getting the flesh food, we're getting the nutrients, but we're getting it secondhand because the animal ate it second processed first. And no man now has really adulterated the stuff that goes out of the ground because we've processed to try to give it a longer shelf. And that has continued to decline the quality of our food. We have agriculture that uses the same ground over and over and over. And some farmers are smart and some are not. And some of them replenish the soil and some of them don't. And so you end up with food that is nutritionally deficient in the fact of vitamins and minerals and so forth that's actually in the food. So yes, I think science today vindicates quite clearly that the closer we eat to food as grown, the healthier we're going to be.
Well, I have noticed. It's been kind of a long, slow process. But there seems to be a greater focus on nutrition now than I've experienced.
It has grown.
There's a big focus on it's just all over the place. And again, I'm overwhelmed with information because you don't know what to believe about what you see and hear. There's so much, and there's all these supplements and it's like, how do you even begin to try to break into living living nutritionally healthy life?
The easiest way is you start slow. You start making incremental changes. If you're in a crisis situation, like you've got cancer, you may need to make a drastic change. But start incrementally and keep the concept in mind. I want to eat my food as close to the way that it came out of the ground as possible. So when you think about it that way, eating fresh vegetables is better than eating steamed vegetables, cooked processed vegetables in a lasagna. Every time you increase the complexity, you correspondingly decrease the health benefits. Not to say that those things are unhealthy, but they're not as healthy. And so what can you focus on foods that you can eat that are the way they grow, with minimal processing, less the better. My wife makes a delicious loaf of bread that has 5 ingredients. As you go to the grocery store and you look at the loaf of bread, and all the ingredients on there, it's like a market list of chemicals. So learning to make your own bread, again, grinding your own flour, you save nutrients that way, as opposed to buying flour that's been ground, set in the warehouse for 6 months before you ever get to it. So it's just a process of trying to gradually moving to more natural or primary source foods.
Have you seen a pretty good growth of interest locally?
Very much so. When we started, there was very little health education in the county in relationship to that. That's one of the reasons why we want to focus on that is health education through the store. And I don't take credit for it. I think it's just an overall cultural thing. But definitely there's been a significant increase in interest in how to be healthy, stay healthy, get healthy, through nutrition. I think COVID-19 really kicked that into overdrive as far as the culture. Needing to avoid being sick, and also having alternative ways of dealing with it when you do get sick, as opposed to just sticking a breathing tube down and waiting for something to go wrong.
Interesting. What do you? What do you feel like is? I guess the most. Two different questions. Probably the most underutilized and the overutilized and the best utilized sources maybe that you have in nature for people's healthy living.
Well, the best things obviously are the fresh vegetables, from the greenhouse. Right now we're focusing on greens, cool weather crops. But generally speaking, we have sweet potatoes, we have onions and garlic.
Yeah.
It's all kinds of vegetables. That's the first stage, the most valuable, if you please. But that's also when you can get that. A lot you can get that.
Sure.
And so it's not our primary focus because it's not something that it's unique, I guess you might say, to the store. Having some organically based foods, we have a lot of stuff is organic. Nuts is organic, and grains are organic. That enhances it as opposed to what you might buy in a regular grocery store. Because of the way it's grown. You're not using pesticides, you're not using added chemicals. And if to grow organically, you've got to look after your soil. You can't just grow it on the same piece of land over and over again without doing something to the ground, because the nutrition will decrease, and nutrition will become unhealthy, insects will get at you, and you can't use pesticides and herbicides. So the nutritional profile of an organic product is getting better. So that's probably the most important thing when it comes to health. Just eat food as grown. Now, in addition to that, because our ground is depleted, because the soil is not being looked after the way it should be, and because it's being poisoned by the overuse of pesticides and herbicides, this is where the supplemental area comes in. And certain illnesses, diseases, where you're not at ease, can give you some indication of where you may be deficient in a particular nutrient, a particular vitamin or mineral. So that can give you some ideas where to work if you understand how the body works and how it uses all of that. Probably the most important thing I would say is to get a good multi. Cover your basics. I call it nutritional insurance. If you get a multi that's primarily sourced on the whole food, not chemically constructed in the laboratory, your body's going to react to that better. Think of a lot. A lot of keys will fit in that lock. The molecules in a natural product, as opposed to a synthetic product or one that's manufactured in the lab, have exactly the same chemical formula, the same number of atoms of each of the different atoms. But the molecule itself forms differently. It's shaped differently. The bonding is different. Where you would have a single bond. Talking chemistry,
right?
Instead of a double bond, that makes a difference in the way your body can access the various atoms that compose that molecule. So that a good natural vitamin, multivitamin, is a really good place to start. Has a lot of different effects on the body. You don't really think of. Not only does it give you the core nutritional components in a way that your body can get at it'll do things like, because you have the nutrition your body's craving for certain nutrients decline. And that helps you control your appetite. Which helps you to not overeat. Which helps you to be more active, be more energy in your cells, so you become more active, because you feel more energetic. So the spin-off effects are very widespread, differentiated and dispersed across the whole spectrum of health.
Yeah. We got somebody else who wants to ask. Make a comment. Good morning. How are you, buddy?
Hey, y'all. I'm enjoying it, y'all. I've got a question I've always kind of wondered about. I know he lives in Amish country, and I've always wondered if the Amish people overall are more healthier people than our people.
Yeah.
I just wonder the way they grow their vegetables, grow all their crops, if they're healthier than us.
Generally more healthy. Yeah. Generally more healthy. Yeah. Well, that'll be. I'll get Alan's. I have a take on that, but I'll get Alan's take on that. That's Lanny.
That is an interesting question.
Yes.
Generally speaking, no.
Generally speaking, no. Okay.
And there's a lot of different reasons. While they do grow their own food, they don't always use organic, processed. I mean, they do spread the manure. They also use chemicals. They spray a lot. So they have the pesticide, herbicide issues. And their lifestyle is very vigorous. So generally speaking, as long as they're active, they're young, they work in the fields, that benefits them tremendously. But when they get older and slow down, through the ladies, when they're having to stay home, take care of children, etc., their activity level drops as far as vigorous physical activity goes. So they start gaining weight, all the associated problems that come with it being heavier than they should be. And they also have a very heavy meat. They also use a lot of animal.
Yeah, they do.
Like the regular American diet, we tend to. You just think about dinner. Dinner's always centered around a protein. And that protein, generally speaking, is going to be an animal protein, animal-based protein.
Right.
And so when you make that the main course, the vegetables are there, but portion-wise, they're not as great. You don't need as many of those.
So they're back to that question about the Amish difference. Their diet is not that much different than the regular American diet.
Not really. Look what they put in their buggy when they go to Walmart or
Yeah, so they don't eat much differently than we do. But they are more active and more physical people.
And that helps. And definitely that physical activity helps. And so they're good to a certain age. When they start slowing down, the health issues catch up.
Well, that's interesting. I would have generally said yes or healthier, but my thought process is because they're so much more active, physical in their daily labors.
And that's why in the plaza at the west side there next to the store, I've always encouraged once we got the opportunity to put a gym in there because physical activity is so
still important. Yeah, it's still important.
No, we don't own the gym anymore. We don't own the gym. Westside Fitness is run by Brandon It's connected. It's the two go together. And I like that.
Well, it's all about trying to be as healthy as you can be, all that. And hey, the folks that listen to me here know I'm struggling. I'm trying to get some weight off and have been for the longest. And it's one of those things. I may have to have a private conversation with you after that.
You need to get in the gym. That's probably your. I don't know. Do you have a gym membership?
Well, actually, I have everything. I could have it at home if I would use it. That's the problem.
That's a problem. You got it. That's a problem.
I seem to create problems this way, and obviously overeat just about any time. But we're working on it.
I had a doctor tell me years ago, Dr. Agar Thresh, from Uchi Pines, who's been one of my mentors. A half an hour of exercise a day will compensate for about 2 hours of sleep. And will also compensate for a huge amount of calories that you eat. We just get more active. It's not just the calories you burn while you're exercising. It's the whole body process. It just enhances everything. The body utilizes what you and burns it off faster.
Well, I know we could talk quite a bit more, but my guest today is Alan Salhini. Of course, Nature's Nuggets. Nature's the bigger name for all of us here out there at Westside. And you guys are open.
Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30, Monday through Thursday, until 4 o'clock on Friday.
You open on Saturday? That's right. You're not open on Saturday. That's right. I forgot. Why you even asked that? I should have known. So Monday through Friday. The hours are when?
The hours are when? 5:30. Monday through Thursday. 9 to 5:30. 4 o'clock on Friday.
4 o'clock on Friday. Awesome, good. And I have been there, but it's been a while. I'm gonna have to revisit.
You're gonna have to come back. Have a good talk.
I'm gonna have to revisit, and I made the traditional New Year's resolution to try to lose some weight and get healthy. And I was so confident in it that I haven't even started yet. So I'm so confident it's gonna work. I'm so confident that it's gonna work. I really haven't, just put off starting.
But don't feel bad, because I had the same resolution. So I got a little gym at the house. But it's always something's coming up and interfering with getting started.
It always seems to be. But again, thank you for the short notice. I know that the short notice today, and we'll try to have you back again. Maybe get a little more in depth on some of the stuff that I know you know a lot about. All right. Good to see you, Mr. Allen. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you.